Hello, and thanks for joining us today. I'm really excited that you could be here. Today, we're talking about second passports. We're talking about so many cool things you could do. We actually have citizenship in multiple countries, the path to do it, and a lot of benefits on why you'd want to. And to join in the discussion today is Mikkel Thorup. Now, he is the world's most sought after expat consultant. He focuses on helping high net worth private clients to legally mitigate tax liabilities, obtain a second residency, and citizenship, and assemble a portfolio of foreign investments, including international real estate, timber plantations, agricultural land, and other hard money tangible assets. Mikkel, thanks for joining us today.
Pleasure's all mine, Ty. I'm excited to be here. Amazing show. So hopefully we can teach and inspire and help some of your listeners today.
I hope so, because you do some really cool stuff, and I wanted to kind of dive into all of it. But let's start with second passports. A lot of people, I always like to start in the beginning because there's people that might not even know what a second passport is, what it does, the benefits. So give me some. Let's start there. Like, what is a second passport?
Yeah, well, first of all, a lot of people think that a second passport is actually the goal, like what we're really after. A passport is just a travel document, same as you have a driver's license, which is going to show your legal right to be on the road behind a vehicle. The passport is your legal right to enter and exit countries. Now, this is the negotiation or the diplomatic ties that your country have with another nation. So that's really the way to think about it. But what we have to understand is that's just a piece of paper. The passport is just a piece of paper. What we need to do is help people get second citizenships. And there is a difference. I mean, there's lots of Americans and Canadians out there who don't even have a first passport, let alone a second or a third or a fourth or anything like that. That doesn't stop them from being a national of their own country. It doesn't stop them for having the legal rights to live and work and do business and conduct their life in those types of countries. So most people kind of grow up thinking that where you're born is you've got roots and they extend out through your feet and you're kind of planted to one spot. Okay, you might go around your town and things like that, or you might go on vacation, but it's not going to take you all over the world. Now, as an expat and having different citizenships and different residencies, which we're going to discuss today, actually, you can build your life anywhere you want. And there's some strategies to make that happen. And there's some advantages and disadvantages. And I'm happy to discuss all of it with you today.
So when we talk about a secondary citizenship, what's the main benefit? Like, what are some of the reasons I'd want to do that?
Yeah, I mean, everyone will always have their own personal reasons for wanting to do these things. But I'll give you a couple of examples which are common reasons and these might speak to certain people in your audience. Now, there is a lot of divisiveness in the world right now. I don't really care if you come from the left or the right, but it's no secret that in today's day and age, there's a lot of divisiveness. If you don't agree in the direction that your country is going, if you don't feel like it fits your beliefs or your ethics or your morals, sometimes leaving and starting again and being purposeful about the place that you're going to be that does align with those beliefs, whatever they might be a good option for you. You can also think of a second citizenship as political insurance. If things get really bad, if you really don't agree and you think that your life is in danger, then a second residency or citizenship might be handy. And we've seen this throughout history, by the way. This goes all the way back to Roman times. We see it from then all the way up to now, how citizenship is granted and how things work and fit together. And you might think, oh, well, my country is different and where I live is perfectly safe. Okay, that's great. I'm super happy for you. But we have been shown that it actually can happen anywhere in the world. I'm born and raised in Canada. I don't agree what's happened in Canada over the last couple of years. There's been so many lockdowns. There's been so many different things that have gone on. And the people who had second residencies and citizenships had a lot more options available to them. So those are a couple of reasons. I will also tack on to that. It's fun to live overseas. It's an amazing experience to go into a new country, meet new people, and learn different languages and look at the world from someone else's perspective. And when you do that, you really grow as a human being. So these are opportunities. Doesn't have to be coming at things from a negative side. You can come at things from a completely positive side. I want to retire on the beach. I want to build my business overseas. I want to meet someone from another country and spend my life with them. My wife's from mainland China. I mean, I never would have met her in southwestern Ontario where I grew up if I had decided to spend my entire life there. But I have a beautiful wife who I love and adore. I have two gorgeous children. They're both born overseas in other countries, and um, it's just makes life really, really interesting. So I know I kind of threw a lot of different perspectives at you there, Ty, but happy to go in any direction you like.
So the question becomes like, I can go, okay, so I was in Italy earlier this year, love Italy, right? But I can go stay in Italy for at least a good a period of time. The period of time differs between countries and still be okay. So is the reason I go to get a secondary citizenship, is it because I really want to stay there longer? Is that like one of the main reasons you do that versus just go to these countries and visit and hang out and vacation and do a lot of the things you can do at least for a limited period of time?
Sure. So what you're referring to is a tourist visa. You have a tourist visa, and it's a visa on arrival. Like you don't need to apply for it because as an American citizen or a Canadian citizen, we can enter the EU and the Schengen zone and travel there. Now you can go for 90 days. Then after 90 days, you need to leave the Schengen zone. So this is an economic and cultural zone in Europe, and you're going to have to leave and go somewhere else for 90 days before you can re-enter. So yes, it's great to go on holiday. And I was in Rome a couple of months ago and I had an amazing time in Italy. But if I wanted to stay on, I don't have the legal right to live to do that. You need a residency or a citizenship to do that. So if you want to build your life, if you want to build your business or anything like that for extended periods of time, then you need to have one of these. Add on to that, during COVID, a lot of countries actually closed their borders completely to non-residents and non-citizens. That means there was no tourism. You could not enter the country as a tourist. But if you had a residency like Panama, where I am, Panama was closed to tourists, but open for residents and citizens. So I can come and go. This happened in a lot of countries in the world, actually. So as we see this movement and the mobility that is affected by these different types of laws, the more strong the laws you have in your favor, the better off you're going to be.
So you mentioned two, resident and citizen. What's the difference between those two?
So, very good question. A lot of people want to use the words interchangeably. They are certainly not interchangeable by any respect. A residency is the legal right to live and work in the country. And when I say residency, I'm specifically referring to permanent residency. I don't deal in you're going to go to university and you're going to be a student and you have a 3-year student visa, a student residency in that country, or a work permit, which would only allow you to work for one country while you're in that country. A permanent residency is going to give you basically everything you need for living and working in the country, to build a business, to own real estate, all of these types of things. On top of that, citizenship is when you actually get a chance to say, like, I am Mexican, I am Argentinian, I am Brazilian or Portuguese or whatever it is. This is, you are actually from that country. Now, there is, in 99.9% of the cases, there's no difference between being born in that country or naturalization and getting your citizenship in that country for spending a certain amount of time. There's other ways to get passports and citizenships we can discuss. But the same thing that coming into the United States, getting your green card and then being nationalized and becoming an American citizen, the laws apply to them the same as the laws apply to someone who was born and raised in the country. There's no differentiation. That's kind of the main differences. On top of that, yes, you do get the passport. You do have an opportunity to have the passport as a citizen. If you wanted to vote, if you believe in voting and the democratic process, then that usually is only available to citizens, as well as serving in the armed forces, if that is something that speaks to you.
And I appreciate that distinction because it clarifies a lot. And another thing that I hear different things about is, what does it take to do this? Like, what does it take to get a secondary citizenship? Because I've heard in the past, for example, that I have to have like my mom and dad be from Italy to be able to get a secondary citizenship in Italy. I mean, I hear different things, but it's usually relative to the fact that I don't have any ties to Italy, as an example. I don't know why I'm picking on Italy right now and just decided to choose it. So, but can I become just a citizen of any country? Or do I have to have, like, your kids have citizenships that are for international from different countries? would that have to be the requirement to be able to be say accomplish a citizenship somewhere else?
Okay, so the way it works is there's actually several different paths to residency or citizenship. But let's tackle citizenship because I think that was the direct question. Yes, you can have citizenship by ancestry if your parents, grandparents, or even great grandparents come from one of these countries. Now, you mentioned Italy. Italy is a very popular one, as well as Poland and Ireland. There's also countries in the Balkan states and in Eastern Europe. There's actually quite a few countries now in Europe that will allow you to pick up citizenship if you have family ties and you can show these ties. So the ties are usually shown by marriage license, by birth certificates, by death certificates, by baptism records. If you have any of these type of documentations, it's worthwhile speaking to a lawyer and seeing, on our website, expatmoney.com, we have a lot of information about the different countries that offer residencies and citizenships. There's a ton of different content out there that might be able to help you, and you guys can reach out to us. So that is one way, you have family that is born there and you might go that path. Now, I told you earlier, I'm born and raised Canadian. My family is actually from Denmark. Denmark does not allow citizenship by ancestry. So I can't go backwards and say, okay, my family's from Copenhagen, I'm going to get a passport. But what I can do is do what's called naturalization, which is what we touched on earlier, living in a country for a certain amount of time. And after those ties have been done, then applying for citizenship, applying for naturalization. So the time frame can be anywhere from 2 years to 5 years to 20 years. Like in Switzerland, I have friends who've been there for 20 years and been applying for their citizenship, and they've not been able to get it. Some have it, some have. So you need to know how to go about it, and each country is going to have its own rules. On top of that is called citizenship by investment. So if you are a high net worth individual, you can actually make an economic tie to a country. Now, that can be a donation, that can be purchasing real estate. There's different options, and they will grant you citizenship. You earn it by bringing your expertise to the country, by bringing financial means, by building a business there, different ways like this. So those are three ways. And then the fourth way is kind of the other. If you were born in another country, if you married someone from another country, then you might be able to get citizenship through that way as well. For example, my wife and I did birth tourism in Brazil. So when my wife was 6 months pregnant, her and I flew down to Brazil. She gave birth there. Our son is automatically a Brazilian citizen because he's born on the ground, on the soil. Now, he also has other citizenships because I have other citizenships. So he's automatically granted those. And because I am the legal guardian of a Brazilian citizen, I get to apply for what's called my family reunification visa. And I get my residency, my permanent residency on the back of my child and a fast track to citizenship. So there was many different ways to skin the cat on this one. It's worthwhile looking at things and working with a professional on it. It's this very niche piece of immigration that I function in, but we get amazing results for our clients. Amazing.
Is there a limit on how many citizenships you can have?
Okay, so there is legally not a limit on how many you can have, as long as the countries that you have citizenships in do allow dual nationality. So if you are from Japan or Singapore or something like that, you're probably going to have a very hard time because they're going to want you to choose one citizenship. If you happen to have a child who has two citizenships, one of them being from those countries, then at 18 they're going to make you choose, and you choose these Asian countries or you choose somewhere else, and you have to renounce the other one. But most Western cultures, most countries in Latin America and the Caribbean and in Europe allow dual nationality. So that's from the citizenship. From the residency side, you're always have a certain amount of time on the ground to spend in each one of the countries every year. So you can have many residencies as long as you can keep them active. So it's kind of a juggling act. You want to have enough so that you feel protected and you have the ease of mobility and you have all the advantages that come with this, but you don't want it to be so much that, you're going to countries that you don't like every year. With a citizenship, you usually, well, no, with a citizenship, you don't need to spend any time in the ground. It's yours permanently. So that shouldn't be a problem. But with the residencies, there's something to keep in mind.
Yeah, and that was, I guess, my next question is that so citizenship, it doesn't matter, but a residency you have to occupy, depending on which country it is, a residency there for so much that you have to own a residency there, you have to occupy the residency, I would imagine, for a certain period of time of the year.
Correct. Yeah.
So, with that being said, is there a benefit that people would want to have a bunch of citizenships? Like we talked about the ability to have them, but is there really a benefit? What are the benefits of why I would want two, three, four, five citizenships? Because I'm more than likely not going to live in five places. I may go visit Italy, I may go visit France, right? But I'm not going to like live in each one of these places for a year or 6 months. I wouldn't think you can't really like occupy all these places at once. So how does that work?
So there can be other benefits. There can be tax related benefits. And I'm not going to be giving any individual tax advice on today's conversation. But if you are leaving Canada or the US or most Western countries, then there are tax programs for leaving these countries. The big one in the United States is called the FEIE, the Foreign Earned Income Exclusion. And if you're residing in another country for a certain amount of time, you can actually have some massive discounts basically on your tax situation. And if you're married, there's a doubling effect. So actually, you're not paying taxes on your first $112,000. And if you have a spouse who's also American, it goes up to just under $225,000 worth of earned income. If you're Canadian or from the UK or from other countries, it can actually get a lot easier. If you get a second citizenship or residency in a foreign country who doesn't have income tax, so you can think like some of the Middle Eastern countries like the UAE. I lived in Abu Dhabi and Dubai for 8 years. They don't have an income tax. So there's no one to pay it to. And because you've legally left your country and you've paid all applicable taxes and you've done everything by the book, you are not filing, you're not paying, there's no one to pay to. You get to live your life free. So what you earn is yours to invest back in your business, go on more vacation, donate to charity, whatever you want to do. It's your money. And that's 100% legal. There's also what's called territorial tax countries, which are mostly in the Caribbean and in Central America, Latin America, but they care more about where the money is generated and not where you are. So if you're not selling to people who live in that country, or you're not going to the office or cutting hair or working in a bar, there's no tax for you. So if you have online investments or like a brokerage account or crypto or real estate or an online business or a coach or a consultant, there's often ways that we can mitigate your taxes on that front as well. Now, obviously, there's a lot to this. And for the second time, I'm not giving individual tax advice, but when you work with a professional, it is possible to set these things up.
You deal with really high net worth clients. Some, if not a lot of your clients are high net worth. Is that primarily what they're doing? Is it for them to benefit on tax? Is that like one of the fundamental reasons of why people are going to get secondary citizenships?
So that's a good question. I had for years doing this business, and it was mostly tax driven. Then, about 2 years ago, there was a massive shift with COVID and the way that people viewed things. And actually, I have more people now who are just looking for more freedom in their life and do not want to contribute to a government that they don't agree with. They don't want to fund a government which is used against them, whether this be a nanny state or surveillance or different things that are happening with these big three-letter word agencies in the US. So people, they want a lot simpler life. They want a country that is not so political or politicized or divisiveness, as I said. So that is the main driver. Now, the taxation just happens to be an added bonus on these things. You can contribute to a country in other ways. You can have economic forces, by hiring staff, by having a maid, by spending your money in restaurants. There's other ways to contribute economically to a country, not just taxation. See, we're kind of led to believe in the Western world that this is your duty and you have to do this, and this is the only way that does it. Actually, I think there's something like 42 or 45 different offshore countries in the world that have no taxation or have a special tax scheme in place so that you don't pay taxes. That's about a quarter of the world. That's a lot of countries. And when you look at nearshore jurisdictions, places like Portugal or Ireland or Cyprus or Montenegro, where the taxation is really, really low, maybe anywhere from 9% to 12%, it gets quite attractive. So yeah, so there's many different drivers for people, but those are some of the common ones.
So in the United States, the state that you have, like I see states make their money all different ways, right? I live in Florida. It's tourism, right? We have a 7% sales tax, and I don't have to pay state income tax here because we have so much tourism that tax on tourism pays for so much stuff. Where I'm from in Indiana, license plates are based on the value of your car. You can spend $1,000, $2,000 for a license plate of your car. That's like where they get you, right? I've seen other states where it's like the property tax. So all I'm saying is there's a lot of different things and ways people could be taxed. So in your experience and what you're describing with, let's say, these countries, 25% of the countries that don't have taxes, are they making other ways? I mean, obviously the UAE is the UAE. It's all oil, right? I mean, they make so much money on oil. They don't have to tax the citizens. That makes sense. But a lot of these other countries, how are they making the money where they don't have to tax? Or is it just, it's not income tax, it's sales tax, or it's house tax? Or, is it a tax on other things other than income?
So there are many countries who don't have, there's many taxes that they don't have. There's no capital gains tax, there's no wealth tax, there's no income tax, there's no corporate tax. There's many different ways that they don't tax people. Now, some countries might have a VAT, a value added tax. I'm in Panama City, Panama. We have a 7% VAT. So that's a consumption tax. That's very different than a income tax. Now, if I were to be a barber and cut hair here, yes, I would pay income tax on that. But because I work with clients outside of the United or outside of Panama, most of my clients are American and Canadian. I'm generating the money outside and I'm bringing it in. Now, how does Panama or Costa Rica or these other countries deal with revenue for the country? Well, first of all, is tourism. A lot of these countries have tourism. Panama has the Panama Canal, which brings in billions of dollars a year. And a lot of the countries have financial centers. Panama has a huge banking sector here with something like 92 or 93 international banks. The UAE has actually a huge financial sector as well. They have tourism, they have oil, they have a financial sector. There's places like Hong Kong and Singapore where there's tons and tons of company registrations there, banking, special economic zones, many, many other ways to do. Now, those are voluntary ways that you can participate or not participate. With an income tax, if you decide that you're just not going to pay the IRS, well, you're going to get in a lot of trouble. I mean, you're likely to end up in an orange jumpsuit, and that's less freedom. I don't subscribe to that at all. And really what that is violence. I mean, it is pay us or else. So what they use the money for, was it used for good causes, bad causes? I don't really care. I want to be involved in something which is voluntary. So I would rather position myself in a country where I have the option of how I'm going to contribute.
Talk about like 25% of countries roughly that don't have tax. But I'm interested to see how, well, in the United States, from your experience, because you're very versed in what you know, obviously it's why so many smart people that want to do this go to you for help instead of try to tackle this on their own. Where's the United States? Like when we look at taxes, if you had to guess top 5%, 10%, 50% of countries in the world, like where are we with our taxation? I mean, you just have to guess hypothetically. I don't expect you to know the taxation of every country in the world, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, I know the taxation of many countries in the world. I wouldn't say it's maybe the probably top 10 to 15% off the top of my head that I would guess. Now, obviously, there's Scandinavian countries out there that have much higher tax. Germany has higher tax. Canada has higher tax. But what I can tell you is that the United States is the most litigious country in the world. There's over 300,000 laws, and ignorance of the law does not dismiss you. So you have to understand that in a freedom aspect, yes, it has high taxes, but not the highest taxes by any stretch of the imagination. They have more laws. There's more ways for you to get in trouble. There's more surveillance in the United States. There's more ways that you are losing freedom than gaining freedom in the US. And this will always this wasn't always the case. The case really was the leader in the world for freedom. But those days are very long gone. They're very far behind us. So, land of the free, home of the brave, unfortunately, is not true anymore. I wish that it was. I absolutely would be the first person in line to be back in the United States if the US followed the Constitution as it was written. It's not a perfect document, but it did starve off a lot of problems for centuries, for absolute centuries. But the reality is now that you're better off to go to a country that has less laws, less taxation, less surveillance, more freedom, more ability to do what you want in your life, and not a nanny state trying to protect you for everything, even your own decisions.
What about foreign investments? A lot of people are pretty skeptical of that, I think, in the United States for whatever reasons, probably because it's been planted in their heads so they don't do it. But what do you see are some of the reasons people would consider offshore foreign investments?
Yeah, I think that the world is a very big place, and the majority of the world functions quite well. So they do have a good legal system that is going to protect you. I've been to over 100 countries, maybe close to 110 countries in the last 22 years of traveling and living overseas. Um, the majority of the world is very open and free, and open to foreign direct investment, FDI, whether that be real estate or land or agriculture or participating in their stock markets. I mean, I've do and have done all of this for many years. The world is not as scary as many people think. I think that a lot of the problem comes down to what mainstream media are telling people and what Hollywood is telling people. But no, I mean, I'm living proof it's okay to go out there and explore and invest overseas. Having a bit of diversification is often very good for you. Adds a lot of stability to your portfolio.
So, as we get ready to wrap up, anything else that maybe we should have talked about that we didn't related to this topic, where people that are out there listening or watching right now thinking about getting a secondary citizenship, maybe something they should know that we haven't dove into yet?
No, I think we've covered a lot here today, Ty. I think that it's just prudent planning. I mean, this is not doomsday. This is not the end of the world by any means. I think it's very good to be prudent, and I hope that the world opens up and everything gets free and we can all get along. I'm not an idealist. I'm a realist, though. Florida, where you live, has been incredibly free over the last 2 years, which has been fantastic and wonderful to see. They've really led the way in a lot of places. Florida has done really great, but there's other countries as well who have been doing a great job on this. So I think it's worthwhile to start doing a little bit of research, to start learning about it. We have a podcast we've been going for over 6 years. It's called the Expat Money Show. So if you go to your podcasting app, wherever you're listening to us today, you can subscribe to that. There's tons and tons of information there. And we're doing a big summit coming up soon, actually. If you guys go to expatmoneysummit.com, you can get tickets. We've got, I think it's about 30 speakers over 5 days, and free ticket. There's no charge to attend, and happy to help out any of your entrepreneurs or your investors, Ty, who need a hand with these things.
I really appreciate it. Thanks, Mikhail, for coming on and spending time with us today.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Ty.
All right, so listen, if you're listening and watching this, we just scratched the surface of the benefits of why you'd want to have a secondary citizenship. And I think, as we talked about throughout the show, the thing is, now the timing is probably better than ever because of so many things that have happened. And right now in the world, there's so many people unhappy just of how COVID has been handled from country to country or even state to state. That's created this. And I have a lot of friends that are doing, just what's being described here. They're going out and getting citizenships in multiple other countries. And you, like me, probably watch a little bit of TikTok, a little bit, and we see what people are living like in other countries and how little they spend to live extraordinary lives. So there's just so many things like that benefit wise that we haven't even got into, but it is a minefield. It's such a minefield. I try to keep these shows on the positive side to talk about the benefits, but we could spend 2 hours, 3 hours just talking about the minefield, the bad things, and the stories about people that spend the money and the time and the energy and fail because they did it wrong. And it's probably what's going to happen because, you're limited to the knowledge if you're just looking online from other people that maybe did it and it worked for them. But what worked for them isn't going to work for you. Like your grandpa wasn't from the same place there's so many variables. So you got to get it right. And if you're going to get it right, Mikkel and his team is the one to work with because this is what they do. So you want to go to expatmoney.com. Expatmoney.com is the source. Just as we talked about here, there's so much here that talks about everything to do with, investing internationally. That talks about getting your secondary citizenship, amongst many other topics. And a lot of what you need is right here. I'm also going to put links here as well to the Expat Money Show, the podcast. You can listen to the Expat Money Summit, where you can actually go to the summit and hang out. And man, what a life to live, especially if you're an internet entrepreneur in a world where you can live anywhere you want to live. You're young enough to do so. Or on the other end, when you've really got money you want to protect and you want to maximize your dollars for the best life. It's just so many circumstances where this makes so much sense. And I can tell you, I have a lot of friends that live in other countries and successfully run US-based businesses, amongst other things they do, and have a phenomenal quality of life compared to what they'd have to here or wherever else they came from. So much stuff to still dive into. Make sure you go to expatmoney.com. This is something you really want to look into because more than likely at some point in your life, you're going to consider this. You're going to consider going to another country and staying there as long as you like to stay. And this is the red carpet to make that happen. It's right at expatmoney.com. So make sure you visit expatmoney.com. Thank you very much for your time. Thanks for tuning in. I look forward to seeing you on our next show. Take care.